Hey everybody. So we want to talk a little bit today about customer experience. It's a massive topic. I mean, if you're in business and you've got customers and you're concerned about elevating that customer experience,
Right.
there's some really critical things that you need to be doing. So before you shut this video off or click to the next tab because you're bored out of your mind, pay attention to it. There's a lot of really good stuff in it. We're gonna try to keep this as short as we can, but we're probably going to end up doing it in about a 3-part series because again, there's just so many different avenues to kind of explore here. So really, we've talked before about journey mapping, and journey mapping is just a process in terms of helping to identify what's broken,
Yeah.
right? Pain points within the journey.
So within the journey, if you haven't ever heard about this, within the journey of your customers from start to finish, in all aspects of your company or your business's processes.
Yeah. So really, I mean, the first thing you have to do is walk a mile in their shoes. You've got to take that outside in approach.
Right.
You've got to be able to look at things like what are they experiencing when they come into your business. So if it's a restaurant,
Yeah.
I mean, you worked in the restaurant industry.
Yeah.
You know, if somebody comes in, you build your whole process around what works for you as a restaurant owner, but do you really experience, when you go and sit in that restaurant and look around at how the serving staff are serving tables, how quickly the bar's responding to the drink orders coming out? I mean, are you immersing yourself in that customer's shoes to really understand what's working and what's not? So that's kind of the first thing, is really taking that outside in approach from a customer perspective. Absolutely critical.
Right.
Without getting into all of the details of this, you need to then kind of go through from start to finish, like Danae said, of everything that's going on, all the touch points, all of the emotions that people are feeling.
Even the physical environment
Absolutely.
where they're coming into and what that looks like, whether it's furniture, music, lighting, all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because customers have a tendency to engage and re-engage several times throughout their interaction with you. So again, we'll use a restaurant example, not picking on restaurants, by the way. But if somebody comes into a restaurant and they decide, I'm going to eat here this time, if they have a bad experience from the time they walk in the door, or even, you could back up that journey and say that even starts before they go to book a reservation.
You have a booking app and it doesn't work right, and then they have to call the restaurant, and if that doesn't go right, but they still come to the restaurant, they've already had 2 frustrating experiences before they even step foot in the door.
They haven't even put food to their mouth yet. So, I mean, you're batting 0 already. And
It's a long process before you even get to food. If we're talking about restaurants,
Exactly.
there's a lot of things that happen, a lot of experiences, good or bad, that happen way before the food.
Exactly. So their emotions are elevated to begin with. They come in with a bad experience beginning.
Yeah.
They're not in the right frame of mind. You've got to play catch up the entire time. So, I mean, we work with companies on this kind of thing to really help them identify these pain points throughout the
journey.
entire journey from start to finish. And then beyond that, once you identify those pain points, it's absolutely critical for you to be able to pull out kind of those big ones. We talked about the app.
Yeah.
I mean, if that's where you're acquiring customers is through online booking, apps and those sorts of
If
things.
that's their first experience with you for a lot of customers, then that's really important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're going to identify big moments of truth throughout the journey that you want to work on, and really drill down deep in terms of what is actually going on. Like, this is where it's important not to get hung up on process, but to get really granular to find out the root of the problem, so that you know that you're fixing the right thing.
Right.
Because if you're fixing the wrong thing, all you're going to be doing is putting a Band-Aid on it.
Yeah.
And we've seen that. We've experienced that in the places
experienced
that
that,
we've
yeah.
worked. We've
Absolutely.
experienced that as customers.
Yeah.
So those are really critical aspects. Once you've figured that part out and you figure, okay, now we know we want to work on this. This is a big problem. This is a root cause. And now you start to ideate around what are some of the possible solutions.
Right.
So restaurant one, maybe you need to do a new app.
Maybe you need a new app. Maybe you need, better training or empowerment for the person who answers the phone at your restaurant to be able to make things right so that they're not floundering. They're the second point, but they need to be on point. And so what's your, your process around that? What's your training around that? What are you willing to do with that person or persons to make sure that they can make it right? Yeah.
So then beyond that, once you've really identified these are some ideas that we have, we're gonna, we can try this, and a lot of them aren't going to work very good.
Right.
But you got to test them. But before you really even get into that implementation stage, you got to prioritize and decide what are the things that are going to have the biggest impact for the least amount of money.
Yeah.
So it's going to elevate that customer
They're
experience.
able to do quickly.
That you can do really quickly. Right. And some of that stuff could be, like you said, answering the phone, a little bit of training, saying, hey, when a person comes in, you greet them by name, like little nuances that can separate you from your competition. Yeah. Those are things that don't cost any money or little money and can actually have fairly significant impact on that overall customer experience. And then you can go to really big things where it might be like we need to do a whole system changeover. It might have high impact too, but it's at a big cost. And you might say, well, we're going to table that for, for 6 months
or a big challenge.
Or a
It
year.
takes a lot of training to get everybody up to speed on it. Exactly. So, focusing on those quick things that you can do that make a huge impact.
So that's just a little bit of a taster.
Right.
Of kind of the things that you can do through customer experience journey mapping. But outside of journey mapping, I guess the point is for your customers, if you're not understanding their pain and what the hell they're going through when they're dealing with your company, you can try all kinds of fixes all day long, and some of them might accidentally hit the mark, but a lot of them are going to fall by the wayside and in fact could actually increase the amount of pain, and it's going to cost you a lot of money, a lot of headache for your employees, because it's basically like throwing like wet paper towel at a wall and seeing what's going to stick, right? And for how long it's going to stick.
Well,
So
it's exhausting for employees to keep going through shifts when there's no real end goal in place and no reason behind it. It's disheartening because they're constantly feeling like what they're doing isn't good enough, and it's like that might not necessarily be the problem. It might not be them. It's the solution that the company came up with that the employees are expected to execute on when it's a shit solution.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
it causes a lot of issue.
Yeah. So engage your customers, understand what's going on. You can do that through some workshop forums and those kinds of things too. We can help you with that, and it'll help you understand what they want to see and how you can actually shape an experience around what is going to actually elevate their lifestyle. So so part one, stay tuned. There'll be more to come on customer experience.
Awesome.
Cheers.